Okay, check 1 2 1 2. Great, welcome everybody. I hope the bus ride was enjoyable. Treat it as a road trip adventure, I suppose. I'm happy to see so many of you joined us. We do still have a few people sick or whatever who's joining us through the online meeting, so they get to enjoy the full spectrum of Teams frames per second. I'm here to introduce to you not only your games, but also a very esteemed jury that we see in front of us. I'm happy and proud to be able to show these people off your hard work for these last couple of weeks. And it's been a jury, like it's been a journey. Sorry, not jury. Well, we have a jury here, but it's been a journey, like any other game project, I suppose. Fought with the hurdles that you had to jump through, no matter if it's just people doing people things, or if it's Perforce doing Perforce things. You know, it's always been a journey, and it's just like game development. It's just creative problem solving. You know, some studios they're gonna face off with their sellers being flooded the day of release, like Larian Studios during Divinity Original Sin 2. Some other studio might just have power outages. Just imagine the poor sods in Ukraine trying to develop Stalker 2 from a bunker. I mean, whatever kind of hurdles you guys are facing with Perforce is nothing compared to what a lot of other studios are going through on a daily basis. But it's a learning opportunity, and I'm happy to see you guys came out well at the end, really. So here we are in Skellefteå. And again, I'm going to let the jury introduce themselves, because I'm very good at stealing people's spotlight. So did you turn the microphone on? Is it on? Green? Yeah, cool.
It's on.
Is it?
It's on.
Now it is. Good. So please, by all means, introduce yourself. Let's start off with Dennis.
It's still on, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Hello, everyone. My name is Dennis. I am from the area. I grew up outside of Boden, and I've been where you're at right now. Before I went to school in a similar situation as you are. It wasn't Future Games. It was a place called the Florida Interactive Entertainment Academy in Orlando, but it was very much similar to this space and showing off your projects to people who were working in video games at the time. So I know how you feel, and it's going to be fine. And you're gonna enter the industry, and you're gonna do just fine. Don't worry about it. My career has been primarily focused on shooters. I worked at EA Dice for the past 10 or so years as lead designer and creative director for Star Wars Battlefront 1 and 2. And then for the last couple of years, I moved up north to Umeå, where I founded our own game development studio called Wayfinder Studios. And we've switched genres from shooters to our long passion of making RPGs. So we just drove up here from Umeå. We're happy to be here. And I'm going to pass the mic over to my partner and co-founder of Wayfinder Games, Fia.
Hello, everyone. My name is Fia. I worked with many of you before, teaching courses and stuff like that. I'm also on the board of Future Games, so I have a lot of insight in the school. I'm extremely passionate about education when it comes to game development, so you might see more of me. Yeah, so like Dennis said, him and I, we started out Wayfinder Studios a few years ago, and I was also at EA Dice before that. And before that, I was at Funcom. And before that, I was also in school, so I do remember. But back then, that was before we had these vocational schools, so I have more of an academic background. So what else to say? Yeah, I love playing games. I play a lot of different games. I tend to be jurying for IGF yearly in some capacity, so I'm very keen to see what this year's games is going to be like. Thank you.
Hey everyone, I'm Fred from the UK. I've helped out with some jury stuff before, future games. I recognise a few faces here, so hopefully it'll be as good as the previous times I've been here. I started out in the industry about 13 years ago, Jagex, working on RuneScape. Moved on, I've done all kinds of stuff, been at startups, working Toys to Life, digital trading card games, physical trading card games, PSVR stuff, and so lots of different stuff, lots of different places, different games, different genres. And I'm now working at a small startup studio that's doing some interesting stuff. We're focusing on non-combat things and stuff, so trying to do something a bit different to what we might see out there. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing everyone's projects today, and hopefully, I can see some good stuff.
Okay, thank you. So I suppose that's well worth a round of applause to the fine esteemed jury. Even before we do get started. So especially a great big thanks to you, Frederick, for flying out here from the UK. So as for today's schedule, you hopefully have seen the information posted in the Teams meeting already. But the first team up, if you haven't read it, is going to be team number 5 in a few minutes. Then we have team number 4 following that. Then we'll break for lunch, and once we resume after lunch, we'll see team 3, then team 2, and lastly team 1. So we're basically working backwards to forwards, working ourselves down from team number 5. Now, the esteemed bus driver has informed us that he's very much willing to basically work within our framework, our schedule. So whenever we feel ready, he can take us home ahead of time, really. So with that being said, let's just see a raise of hands. Is there anyone here who had hoped to grab dinner here in Skellefteå before going back and want to have time to do that? Or is everyone more willing to just head back home as soon as possible? So hands in the air if you want to stay to grab dinner and we move out at 4 o'clock as planned. Okay then, just making sure. Yeah. So I then interpret it as basically once we're done, we'll just phone up the bus and go on about our merry way. Okay, cool. So we'll have a short break between team 2 and 1 just to stretch our legs. But without further ado, I suppose there's no much more information. With us online, I can mention quickly, we do have our fine musicians, hopefully, most of them at least, I believe are with us online to see the presentations. And for the jury, just to reiterate, we have been working with a separate school entirely, a school called Framnäs Folkhögskola, who are educating video game musicians. So each team of Future Game students have also had students from another school entirely working with FMOD and interactive music. So feel free to keep that in mind. And thank you guys very much if you're online following us along here. Yeah, with that being said, I don't suppose there's any reason to take up more of your time. So if you guys are ready, team number 5, do we have a presenting person? Welcome on stage, Martin. So for our presenters, we have this very headset. For our jury members, we have a handheld microphone. If any of you teams have 2 people presenting, we're going to have to work around it, basically, by borrowing the handheld one for a couple of minutes. But please, by all means, take over the responsibility that way.
Like this. Hair's in the way again. There we go. See, ooh, there we go. It's got a laser pointer. Woo!
Oh, you can drag it. I didn't know that. That's actually really nice. I think the one at the end, probably. Yeah, that's the one. Let's see, that's the... Oh, it does work. Nice. Perfect. All right. So, I'm here to present our game, GP4, Cave, Shrooms, and Crystals. And I should be able to just start the trailer, which is right here. Without any further ado first. So, that was the trailer to our game. As you can see, it's a first-person shooter, roguelike kind of situation with a boss fight at the end. Uh, exactly what I wanted. Let's see. Yes, so this is the team that we had. We basically decided on the idea for the game after we knew what everyone wanted to do. It was quite solid that we had at least 2 people that wanted to do level design. So my idea of a dinosaur ranch cowboy game did not end up getting picked. But we also had someone who wanted to do AI programming. So a kind of horde shooter became a pretty good pick, especially if we could have multiple levels. And that's what we ended up going with. So the idea started out basically, we said Risk of Rain 2, combine it with Candy Crush. Where the Candy Crush part we want to implement was the whole chain reaction thing, where one thing happens, everything explodes, and it's all very satisfying. And the basic gameplay loop, it's really just you kill the enemies, they give you money, you buy items with that money, and then you use those to kill the enemies even better than before. Yeah, as I said, very much inspired by Risk of Rain 2. Level design and aesthetic, more so from Deep Rock Galactic, but we kind of took what we could get because we didn't really have any artists, as did anyone. So the asset packs kind of led us in this direction. And very fun part is we had some accidental features. For example, New Game Plus actually worked out very well because I accidentally forgot to reset the save when you press New Game. And it turned out to be so fun that we just added a new button that did reset the save. And now we have New Game Plus, which is actually magnificent because, as you can see in this little video here, the player has like 76 damage upgrades, and if they shoot the gun, the bullet gets a little bit bigger. Because for every damage upgrade you have, the bullet gets, I think, 0.1% bigger, or something like that. So here they are at the edge of the tutorial map, and it turns out like that. Let's see. The clicker doesn't work when you have videos playing. So we had, from the prototyping course, we made 2 prototypes, where the first one was a kind of destruction hammer game, and the second one was this game, the horde shooter. And it started out kind of like this. The UI was impeccable. And then, luckily, the same level kind of got reused again, so this comparison shot works pretty well. Yeah. Let's just play the game. Right. Let's see. We have a goober that was supposed to play the game. That's you right there. Let's see if we can find the game.
Do you want feedback during gameplay here?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, we have. I'll probably be talking a little bit throughout, and if you guys have any input about what you're seeing, that would.
Do you have a volume slider in the game?
Yes, I think. Yeah, I don't know where the game is, I'm afraid. Five. Cave Shotter. We might have forgotten to add the main menu name. Just pull it way down, like there. And then sound effects as well. So the main menus and the UIs. I was the UI UX designer. I mean, me personally, I'm not really good at spending time in the right places. So the shop took like 3 weeks instead of one. But you can see, for example, the tutorialization, we didn't really have time either. But this little tutorial section, we introduced the player to the enemies. So it's really just one enemy and then a lot of variations of it. The brown ones are ranged, and you have the purple ones that are just melee enemies. Here we just introducing those. Damage upgrades. As you can see, the UI is very much inspired by Risk of Rain 2. You can hold tab to hover over the items you have to see descriptions. A little pop-up that shows you what it does. The sound effects. We had a VFX artist as well. You can see they made things like the freezing effects and the effects of most enemies. We have a little shop tune. He has comments about basically anything you can buy. Like obstruct tacos for health. And that's where I spend most of my time, even though I probably shouldn't have. But we very much. I mean, some things were not overcomplicated. They didn't have to be. For example, the level loading system. We originally didn't really store what items the player picked up, which was kind of problematic when we wanted to switch levels. So luckily, I had started storing them, and we just reapply every item every time you enter a new level, which causes some small issues, but it works good enough. One small part that sadly didn't make it into the build we see here is the music intensity switching depending on how many enemies are on screen. We tried getting it in at the end. You can see the player getting stunned. What it's from? That's the chain reaction we are hoping to get. So for example, there that green enemy died and you left behind a poison cloud, and that also damage enemies. So if you try to lure all the enemies into the poison cloud. You could also see the red effect that we added. So when I think 25% of enemies are left, all the enemies will become visible through the walls, so that you can actually find the enemies. Other than that, I think we've basically encountered the entire gameplay loop at this point. Just more exploring of the levels, finding the chests, getting stronger. Thanks to the shop that we have, you can actually try to go for like specific builds as well. Because you can try to stack as many power upgrades or mobility upgrades as possible. That was something we definitely focused on, trying to get in like a kind of build thing. Yeah, the current and remaining ammo. It's kind of, as I said, we probably should have spent a little bit more time on the HUD, like the UI. This was supposed to only be the debug UI, but then there was no time left, so we just gave it a new lick of paint and hoped for the best. I think the ammo counter is definitely the biggest show of that. Going very well. This is probably one of the longer levels in the game. There's a lot to be said about where we should have spent more time, especially where we should have spent more time early. I would say audio is probably one of the things we should have spent more time on, especially earlier. Audio. Because I think most of the sound effects were done last week. Music was implemented only a couple days ago. So there was some issues like the intensity not changing. But in the end, the gameplay itself has proven to be quite satisfying. Like people are inclined to try the New Game Plus especially, just to feel satisfaction of replaying the same with this more and more power, and very much snowballs at that point, which is quite fun. The items themselves are a bit nonsensical. They are very much whatever model we had on hand, and then the shopkeeper has some kind of justification for why they exist. Yeah, this is the basic gameplay loop. So the new waves, I think I wasn't entirely on that part of the team, but I think they trigger on certain positions. There's giant hitboxes in the level that spawn new waves, and move on to the next wave. We kind of also hope the player, after beating all the waves and getting as much money as possible, kind of goes through the level to find all the chests. It's kind of similar to Risk of Rain 2. I mean, Risk of Rain 2 has a very good system in that it gradually gives you more and more enemies to fight. We didn't really have time to implement it like that, sadly. We had some different ideas on how to go on to the next level. One idea was that you would have to pay for the door to the next level. So you would have to collect enough money. And then shop would only be available after all the enemies are dead. They're kind of still got that by putting the shopkeeper behind the door next level every time. Now you hear the little victory tune of the shopkeeper. Sound of capitalism. You can unlock extra slots in the shop, and the shopping cart gets bigger for every slot you unlock. Time well spent. That's the sound of every upgrade being applied in one frame. But yeah, if you guys have any commentary, I mean, I will, as we go, probably explain the game a little bit more, but yeah. There is exactly one occurrence of a door where you can pay to go through it. Every other door completes after a wave is over. Oh. Not entirely sure if we'll make it through the entire game before our time is over, actually. We can keep playing in the background, but... yeah.
Okay, is that? Yep. Yeah, Ella's good. The first thing I got on here is the good sense of humour. I like the trailer. Trailer was good, and I think it set the grounds for what we then went on to see. I think what you were saying about the team composition. You were working out what the team composition was before you went into the project. I think it's a smart use of the team resources and stuff there, and embracing the new game plus was a good move, I think. There's a couple of things here. What we got? So one thing I think would be nice to see would be is there an upgrade stat screen so you can see like what each of the upgrades have got like?
Yes, so if you hold tab like he's doing it now, the game doesn't pause, but you can hover over the items to kind of see what they do. Originally, we also had so that it said the percentage it would improve your stats. But yeah, as you said, that would actually have been a really nice feature, seeing like every stat and then where it's at. That would have probably been really nice.
It's just that in a game like this, especially with taking like from Risk of Rain, it's a really nice thing to just see number go up is always good.
Yeah, number go up is very satisfying. Now, the reason we ended up not adding the parameters in anymore was partially because they kept changing so much, but also because at some point we accidentally made everything exponential, and it didn't really work anymore.
That's fair. How do you interpret the theme for this? Like, where did you see the theme coming from?
The theme of ecosystem. So originally the idea was the ecosystem would be the way that everything interacted with each other and exploded and would do all that magic. I think we kind of tried to blend it into the narrative, but the narrative really never got explored. The narrative would have been the mushrooms are taking over the crystal caves, and that's where they get their magical powers from. But that never really got put anywhere. Maybe the shopkeeper would have been a good spot for that. But
cool. I guess the last thing is like, are there any like specific upgrades or enemies that you feel like after having played it now, like, are there any like the enemy abilities or weapons or upgrades that you don't think work or that hard counter enough? Like, how would you sort of like rebalance what you've got here?
So we have a couple broken upgrades for sure. We have one that's a double barrel. That one's very nice. But as for upgrades that don't work, I think we have a total of 17 items right now, and I think ended up cutting 2 of them quite soon before release. One of them was how fast or how far the bullets would go, and there was another, I think. One kind of got half implemented, and that's the damage resistance. Those are the chainsaws up there, the medical chainsaws. We ended up removing them from the shop because if you were able to buy a lot of them, then you would be invulnerable. And the way we set up the logic for what shows up in the shop is not very scalable. So I ended up just removing it from the shop entirely. I mean, every item works. Had we had more time, I think adjusting balance would have been quite nice.
We didn't we had to test the game ourselves, which obviously is possible, but takes some time, and so balancing a game like this becomes difficult.
Yeah, as you can see, the shop, for example, now has another milk bottle, which is an active item. But we already have 2 active items, so it shouldn't be showing that. So these kinds of things kind of just ended up like that.
Okay.
Thank you. I should start with saying I play almost daily Risk of Rain together with one of the kids. Big hit. I think it's smart to pair it up with another game that's completely different to drive your inspiration, like you use Candy Crush in this example. And this is a extremely good learning opportunity that the idea is cheap and execution is more difficult. So I would think the chain effect, the difference between Risk of Rain and your game seems to be that in your game there's friendly fire for the NPC or the enemies, and I think there's something there in that general idea that might not be as satisfying to the player as if the player themselves cast these things with the upgrade.
Yeah.
I don't know if have you discussed anything like that on your team?
I think it came up at the start, how the over-reliance on AI was quite scary because getting the enemies to all line up in the way that the player would want to
Yeah.
would be quite difficult. But we kind of just said, well, let's try it anyway. We had
Yeah.
an AI programmer, so we wanted him to try his best, and he very much did a very good job.
Yeah, if you take take that thing back, that like resistance you feel, and that you were not able to execute it as well as maybe you hoped,
Yeah.
and I think you can do something with it that could be extremely satisfying, and
Yeah.
it's like, I think this project is very interesting as a learning project because working so closely with these ability upgrades and the VFX and getting that UX feeling really tight.
Yeah.
So I think that the idea is a good one, and I think you can execute it on even better if you try to take it back to your team and group and figure out what is missing and how do you let the player drive that
That's
chain
very-
effect.
That's very fair.
And so I would like to ask who made the shop?
That would be me. The shop
Yeah?
is me.
Okay,
As,
great. I wanted to compliment that in only a 4 weeks project, you were able to put like so much delight and like break off of the monotony of the fighting experience with something that, it felt like delightful to be in there. And there's like a lot of humor added to like that skeleton standing with the shopping cart. I especially like when we, in such a short time, have time to put a little extra delight in there.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, we very much wanted it as like a breath of fresh air in between every round of combat.
Yeah.
And it's very much my style to do everything in a comedy way. The game I made before this, Untitled Skeleton Game, I mean, you can kind of see how it carried over into this one. There's a lot of references to one and the other.
Yeah, you can see a lot of that delight in like choosing the mushrooms model, for example, the VFX as well. So like, yeah, that was nice to see from the whole team. Yeah, about the accidental design, you have a bit of a missed opportunity there because discovering something like that is always amazing, and then you better if you plan for and polish how you can bring that into a great experience and not just rely on the accidental part of it. So like the huge bullet that you explained was, I think, a seed of amazing, and then if you dress that accordingly at how it would actually look in the new Game Plus, then that would be really good.
Yeah, that's true.
So finally, a general piece of advice. I don't know if it applies to your group, you will have to decide, but making a tutorialization tends to be time consuming. So if you only have 4 weeks, you can try to not plan to do the tutorialization part to save you some time and trust that players will know how to shoot and things like that.
Yeah.
But it depends on how much time you spent on. If you spent only an hour, then never mind.
I mean, I was supposed to be in charge of tutorialization, but I kind of had to do it very quick. So the tutorial is really just text in the world. It's like shift to run, Q to dash. I ideally would have wanted more in-depth tutorials, maybe like some pop-ups, and they would check if you press the right button.
Yeah, and I would think in such a short project, sometimes you can skip it if it's a game mechanic that you can already assume many players will understand.
Yeah, that's...
But you have to make the call.
Yeah.
So I would like to congratulate on like such a tight experience. It feels like this team has worked together to get the shooting and everything into a good state. It feels like a bit of a safe project because it's so similar to Risk of Rain, but that's not critique. It's just that's how you learn to build a good shooter, I think.
Yeah. Oh, thank you very much.
It's hard to be last. I'm sorry, Dennis.
To cover stuff that wasn't covered, I think satisfying shooting, you got hit indicators and you're feeling the impact, you got progress bars. I don't think there's any issues with your HUD as it is. I don't think you should tell me that this is updressed. I think you should just like promote your stuff and be like, yeah, totally looks great. And which I think it does considering the time constraints. When you are setting up a project like this, and you know your constraints are that you will be working with established asset or like marketplace assets, then I believe that your differentiator should be about locating like that one rule or like that one game mode or like that one game design that's really interesting, because the art could be anything, the mushrooms could be anything, right? Because you haven't technically like you've spent 1,000 crowns on it, right? And so I wonder if potentially, like when you there's also a delight of like, hey, we got some money and let's spend on some assets, and then like your theme can run wild with you a little bit, and that like let's just make fish and skeletons and mushrooms work, right? And while that provides comedy, I wonder if potentially it could also distract you from like locating like that one thing that's like, what is this game design hook that, because that's, you know, that could be your focus. So like if you compare to Risk of Rain, like there are specific things that clearly like makes Risk of Rain, where like you need to locate the portal, and then the portal, you have to defend the portal against the boss, and like all of that stuff makes for like a crescendo at the end of every level that you're playing. And I wonder if like I would be looking more for like, what is that one game that rules twist that makes it really delightful, and like or makes it something that this could be any theme, but the sort of loop around this would be addictive and exciting. And so a little bit of when I'm watching, I'm waiting for the intensity to increase through some systems or something like that, and I am not reading it right now. I would love to read something where like, oh, now there is a GTA star rating, or like there's something here that makes like, oh my god, I managed to do this, and now there's so many fungi coming at me, and like something like that, I think would greatly enhance like the excitement and pacing of it.
That's very fair. I mean, Risk of Rain does that very well with its like literal intensity slider, where it's like over time there will be more enemies.
Yeah,
I think that would have been a very nice feature had we had the chance. Same with maybe some amount of damage scale or health scaling on the enemies and damage scaling.
We wanted to have from level to level, enemies will become more aggressive, so faster and with more damage over time. But unfortunately, we couldn't really implement that. So the idea was, and that's the reason why the balance goes down as you go further in the game, because unfortunately we couldn't implement that kind of scaling system that makes the enemies more aggressive. So we wanted to make them faster and with more damage and stuff like that.
Did you try, or did you completely just out?
We didn't really try because we wanted to focus and try to make what we were working on
you have a melee guy and a projectile shooting guy, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, understood. And these are handcrafted underground levels, right?
Yeah. These levels were made by our 2 level designers.
Yeah. And I think that's really cool. Again, considering that you're doing handcrafted levels, I am looking for any type of like traversal mechanic or anything that sort of tells me why caves and what's so cool about caves, because I do like caves, but like that there is I was gonna say something about the water not really feeling impactful in the level, and that there's opportunities in like it felt like you were just running through the water, and it wasn't really. Was it slowing you down, or was it doing anything, or was it mostly
the
like,
water has just floor on it?
Yeah, but the lava, I'm sure, kills you, right?
It respawns you.
Yeah, understood. And I think there's stuff there where if you're committing to handcrafted levels, and you're committing to caves, and I realized caves were like that. That was what was on sale today. Like, and
Yeah,
there's a little bit
I
of
mean,
that.
basically.
But use that to. Oh, are you flying?
No, this is he has 6 jumps right now and 3 dashes.
Yeah, yeah.
I think originally we did have plans to have parts of levels where you could only get there with a certain amount of upgrades to movement.
Yeah.
I think that would have been quite nice.
Yeah, for sure. I think that stuff would help and would sort of tell me if the fantasy is that I am someone who's navigating these caves with guns, then like I I am a little bit like there's something in what my skills are uh, that just makes navigating caves greater. So like a floating like this stuff is cool. Like I think you should have done a lot more, or maybe it's just because you're late enough in the game now where
Yeah, where the damage, where the intensities can. I mean, yeah, the new game plus kind of might carry the gameplay just a little bit, but
that's cool.
it's yeah.
Finally, what's your philosophy on when you're tweak like player speed versus enemy speed?
I think you might know more about that, but I think the yeah.
That comes back to the scaling absence that we have, which is so initially to don't overwhelm the player. The enemies are not super fast. I also wanted to make them a little bit faster, but I got feedback of trying to make them slower because that's the thing. In the beginning, you get overwhelmed by the other ones. But as you progress in the game and you get some upgrades that make you faster and move more, etc., it's really hard for the enemies to actually get to you, and also for their effects to impact you if you don't play aggressively. So that's the reason why the scaling idea was to mostly like the most important thing to me was to make them faster so that they could reach you and like put you in a threatening position, and all their death effect would actually apply to you and things like that. So that's like the idea was to have that kind of scaling working towards making a balanced perspective.
I think you especially try to find the balance between not making them too fast at the start, but making them fast enough to actually catch up to you in this boss fight, just so you can keep running circles around all the enemies.
Yeah, I think that's one thing that we learn. We automatically assume like the core things you tweak is health and damage, but in reality, the most powerful thing that you're tweaking is speed. And my feeling is if I'm comparing it to say Risk of Rain, I think they are slowing down the character a little bit more than you are. I think that this is a pretty fast-paced game in terms of just WASDing around, and I think yeah, just like if you were to slow down the skeleton a little bit, then you wouldn't have to speed up everything, and I wouldn't be if you take it further, I would just take that into account, like that the speed of it is actually you might find cool things by just allowing yourself to slow down a little bit.
That's very fair. We for the movement originally, I don't think we changed a lot about the movement since the prototype. We actually stole the player controller from prototype 1, not 2, because we wanted to make like the kind of Quake-like movement. So the camera in this also tilts and does things like that. And from there it kind of stayed quite fast, I think, because we stayed with that prototype.
Well, really cool stuff. Really impressive work.
Thank you
Thank
very
you for
much.
showing us.
Okay, with that being said, a round of applause and a great big thank you. GP5. Okay, so then we have one more team before we break for lunch. So up next, of course, by maths, team number 4. Who's going to be presenting team number 4? We have 3 presenters. 3 presenters? Okay then. We'll make it work. Who's going to be in charge of 33%?
think you should.
Spokesperson.
Sure. Yeah, I can like that.
How do I hold it? Like this, like. Thank you. Put it on my. Sorry.
Check one, check one. Okay, cool.
Nice.
Let me just turn to your.
I give
who's
that
gonna
to
be in
you.
charge of the blip?
Yeah, who wants to be blip?
I want. Oh shit. I don't know where we're all gonna stand.
Hello, can everyone hear me? All right, welcome. We are. Oh, hold it closer. Okay. We are Team 4. You can. 4est. These are every member. And then we are going to present a small third-person fantasy action game where you play as a druid tasked to protect his forest against nasty humans trying to cut down the trees. So you have to make your way through the level and interact with various animals to get new abilities that will help you defend the forest. So our pillars are abilities tied to animals. So like I said, you will interact with various animals and get new abilities. And we also chose to put a lot of emphasis on player choice. So you can either chase the humans away by damaging them, ultimately killing them, or you can irritate them or annoy them or make them scared so they flee the forest. And then lastly, we have emphasis on narrative. So depending on your player choice, you will either get a good ending or a bad ending. So yeah.
That's me. Yeah, so I'm gonna start kick off this section of the presentation about our journey. So I'm going to talk about fun things that happened and things we learned along the way. So let's start with something that was really a lot of fun, and that was that for this project we were fortunate enough to work with musicians, and these musicians were not, like Henrik said previously, they were not only as musicians, they were gaming musicians. And that meant we could use Fmod because they know Fmod. And this image here, this may look super complicated and things, but the good news for us was that we did not need to touch this. This was set up in such an excellent way that we could just poke at it through our code to change the parameter. Yeah, so what you're seeing here, this is adaptive music. So for our level 2, as time goes on and you're nearing the end of the game and things are being more intense, the music will dynamically adapt in a way which fits the mood and what's going on in the scene. And yeah, this system handles all of that. So that was a lot of fun.
Right, now it's my turn. So this time we had a budget of 1,000 crowns to buy asset packs. But what to keep in mind is that asset packs are not a cheat code. As you can see here, we bought an asset pack that was supposed to have modular characters, but it was just very cursed for our workflow. So this is from when Molin tried to use them in the sequencer. And yeah, it can turn out really badly. But I think at the end of the day, we filtered out most of the things, and we ended up with a consistent art style that looks good. Yeah. So one of the things we said during our pitch presentation, I guess you can call it, to get artists and sound designers, was that we wanted to use the old workflow of Unreal. We didn't want to use Nanite or Lumen. I want to actually bake the lighting. And so that's what we did. And that meant that building our game only takes about a minute. Because in our level 1, we only have 2 lights, 2 static lights, and that's it.
So what actually took time was just building the lighting. But that also means that we have really good frame rate. It's not very heavy on the performance. And yeah, Rasmus has a little bit of a story about that.
Oh yeah, so I was a little bit of a driving force. I wanted to make the light because I was like, if I see another Lumen artifact thing, I'm gonna be sick. I need to go back. Let's go back 20 years and do some different thing. I was really focused on trying to make something that looks more unique than just an Unreal 5, yet another Unreal 5 template, which I've done way too much. And I really wanted good performance. So that was my goal. I'm going to get good performance, and we started. And when the moment we got it going, we had like I had hundreds of frames per second. It felt really good. And then the project went on, and we started adding more things to the scene. And then I was sitting there in the Unreal editor at 30 FPS, being like, "Oh no! I said my goal was to make this game performant. What is going on?" And then Herman comes to me and he says, "Oh, have you seen the frame rate?" I was like, "Oh yeah, I've had like 30 FPS for the last 3 days." He was like, "What? No, I have 300 in the build." I was like, "Ah." That was great. So we're really happy about how that turned out with the performance of everything.
Yeah, yeah, because that was one of our goals, and we really managed to make that achievable, and we did succeed with it.
Oh yeah, pop quiz talking about light. Does anyone know? There is an issue here, or this caused us an issue. Is there anyone in the audience that knows what is going on? Anyone is a light artist? Okay, it doesn't seem like. Well, this took us 1 whole day to solve, and the trick here is in the static light resolution tooltip. It says like the total resolution would be changed by static light resolution times static light resolutions. So yeah, this would be a 512 by 512 shadow texture. And yeah, that is correct if it's not on the landscape. So what happens here is that we were building per meter in game 512 by 512 texture. That is 260,000 pixels per meter. So no wonder our game was crashing. So we turned that down to 1 pixel per meter, and everything worked great.
Yeah, it's set to 1 by default. So we were crashing when we were building lighting the whole day, and we were going crazy, like, what is happening? So yeah, that was the issue.
Yeah.
Yes, adventure games are crazy difficult to make. So because we wanted to have the narrative in the game, we realized that just making sure that the player follows the proper procedure and do things in the correct order and things, that took a lot of time just to make sure that happens. And yeah, that's something we once again just realized as we were making this. And I don't think we really scoped for that. So it was a bit of a stress towards the last week, but we managed to make it work in the end, which is nice.
More things, yeah. So here are more things which we learned along the process.
Do you hear me?
Yeah.
Perforce sort of crashed on us multiple times, so we switched to Git, and it worked great. It's the best workflow I have worked with in a group with what is called. No.
Fork, the client.
No, the name for when
source control.
Source control.
Yeah,
thank you.
Source control.
And 2 of our members have never used Git either, so we got to learn that, which was nice.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. I was a bit surprised. Oh, what? We have programmers who haven't used Git. I was like, oh, this can't happen. Let's go Git.
So yes, so one of the things that was very nice for our project was that everybody got to work with what they wanted to work with, except for me.
It's really fun.
Because I said on the first day as we met as a group, I said, okay, I don't want to do UI and I don't want to work on implementing characters. And what did I do? I had to implement all the characters.
And the light.
And the lighting. But yeah, it was really nice. So people got more independence and could get things done. And one of the things that William, who was doing our AI, said was that he kind of had to become his own QA, and even that wasn't enough. And yeah, it's very true. Like you do need to collaborate and see, like get feedback from everybody else as well. But yeah, I think at the end of the day, we managed to get it all together. We got a performance that we wanted. We made our little adventure game, and yeah, it kind of worked out in the end. Yeah. Thank you so much.
So, yes,
we can have this back.
No, we're gonna play because we want to show off the audio and stuff. So we're going to have a demonstration of the game right now, and then after that, we can go into feedback. Because there are some, we really want to show off the music. Okay. We are not in this anymore. You can. Do you wanna? Okay, yeah. So we have a UI. Okay, whatever. We want to lower the music. Oh yeah, it's a cutscene. We're gonna lower the music in a bit. We have our settings menu, but there's a little bit of a bug here, which I accidentally. Oh, well, it is a bug. This background is because we had the menu was a different scene. In the main menu, when you change to the settings menu, you went to a different scene, and that was a different map. So that meant it was a different map that needed to have its light baked. So right before we submitted our thing, we managed to, by changing those levels to PNGs, we cut down our file size by 600 megabytes. But now you see the background when you open the menu. Over there about the. So yeah, in our game we have a lot of narrative. You're playing as this druid and these creatures of the forest, both these mythical wisp and the animals, communicate with you and talk about what is going on. Sadly, we did not have a very good tutorialization, so a lot of it is baked into this conversation here in the start of the game. Teach you all of the buttons and what they do. So just go through that. I want you to. Yes, there's a lot of reading, so I don't want to be here all day. So yeah, in this game we have a lot of. If you now I want you to go to the light here. So this light is baked. It's a static light because we only have 2 of it. But if you run out into the light, like, it gets hit by light, and it's super cool. And it's like, wow, there's light in the game. Yeah. Not everything needs the super mega fancy lumen lights. But that meant that we had to do a very, we had to add a material function to bring ambient light into the scene, because otherwise things that would be in the dark would just be pitch black. We had a unique material workflow that fits our sort of art pipeline. Here, William is fighting, and as you can see, they have 2 health bars. And this is the. No, I think this one is irritated and is running away. So we wanted to play on the morals, sort of like. The druid doesn't really want to kill these humans. They don't. The druid doesn't like violence, but the forest is more important than that. So sometimes they're forced to. And you can choose the now, William. now we're in the sad part where Bard is going to tell you about how the forest has been cut down. And the Guard Rider left. But yeah, this was the music we wanted to show off. There is a lot of these with the cutscenes and using the music that we had and parts of the music during different cutscenes to give the effect on feeling. Combat phase. So when you defeat this one, either through, you see near here, the health is, oh yeah, I think you defeated it. But remember to heal the trees now, William. So now that at least some of them, we can always come back later. They really can go and heal the rest. So if you hold, yeah, we have our effects here to heal all the trees, and they also heal the player. You can heal. This is important for the next sequence of the game. So it was the first level, the tutorial level, and then we move on into the bigger sort of battle. Here we have the music. If you listen to the music now at the beginning, and then we can take a moment to listen to it at the end. You will hear that it has changed. Now the humans are running around trying to cut down all of these trees, and you have to stop them. And either through trying to be careful to not kill them, or going crazy and using all of your abilities to do the things. Oh yeah, as you see here now, because William helped the birds, he has now unlocked 2 new abilities. We can summon a raid of birds to hit on the enemy to irritate them, or birds that attack and claw at the enemies to hurt them. Yeah, so this sequence here you have to defeat the enemies before they cut down the trees. You can. There is a tree that is cut down, but you can heal them up to sort of prevent the enemies from reaching their goal. See that more trees are being cut down, and it's sort of a race against them trying to cut down the trees and you trying to defeat them. The music gets a little booming. Oh, yeah, so this is an ability where you turn into a tree. We were doing development, we were thinking about maybe we should go into a bit more stealth, like you could maybe sneak around the enemies and do things like that. But that area we did not explore further, but you can still turn into a tree, and if you're in as a tree, then the enemies can see you and they won't aggro onto you. And hide as a tree and shoot the bird attacks at them. So we will see here in a bit when the game ends, when William has defeated enough enemies. You don't need to chase all of them down, but a good majority of them. And then if you, depending if you killed them or irritated them away, you will either get the good or the bad ending. Here we also see another enemy near this lumber camp. So they go out into the forest and they cut the trees down, and then they return to this lumber yard to return the lumber. But here there are these enemies which are a bit faster and tougher guards. hopefully in a bit. William spotted that the arrow above the lumber woodcutter's head was green, which means that they are irritated and running away. Now it's yellow. What's going on here with the, and then it's green. So it's like, okay, I'm gonna leave this area. I'm done. These lumber woodcutters, they don't really want to attack you straight away. They're sort of a little bit like. No, it's fine. I was saying that you did a bad ending. Yeah, there was a bad ending. William did not wasn't well attuned to nature and did a little bit too forcefully and got to the bad ending. So yeah, that's the whole game. Oh yeah. Well, we can wait. The one on the feedback.
It's still on, right? Yeah.
Oh yeah. We have a functioning key binding menu, but the UI wasn't implemented, so this is a bit of a shocker. I was meant to warn you, but William was a bit too hastily. But all of this, all of the key bindings works, and the programming is well made. Not so much the UI design, but yeah, you can go back. Yeah, you can. Well, yeah.
Really cool. Thank you for showing us. Yeah. This is an extremely ambitious game to be made in 4 weeks, as I'm sure you guys felt. And I have made some of these myself. I tried making an RTS with a team in 4 weeks. It didn't work. And I think there are the greatest learnings here, I think, are that there is a difference in pace and speed of prototyping depending on the genre that you picked. And an action adventure genre is extremely ambitious, and I'm still very impressed in that you managed to put together a coherent experience, and I thought your abilities and sort of combat mechanics are really impressive and creative. It's cool to see you sticking with like the theme of a druid and nature and sort of embracing that. Unreal is not like super kind it's not really, you're not focusing so much on melee and you're not focusing on shooting, which means that you have to start doing a lot of custom things in order to get your spells and stuff to work. That takes time. I am impressed with the amount of programming that has gone into this game. I think it's for feedback, if you push on and you want to continue with this, or things that like could have gone differently, I think consider a different camera angle to drastically cut down on your scope. This could have had this been like a top-down experience, for example, or an isometric experience, I think it would have demoed a lot better. And I realized maybe you had a different vision for it, but in terms of just like getting something done in 4 weeks, I think being clever with your cameras is useful. Behind your character, third person is the most hardest camera to get done, and it's going to put a lot of just focus on the camera being dynamic and not stiff and all of those things, and it's just going to drain your programming time if you're going to make that. You still could have pulled off what I thought was really cool and clever cutscenes, and it's clear that you wanted to tell a story and show off sort of the environment and sort of stretch your skills there. I think you could have achieved that even with a different camera for gameplay, and that I think could have helped the overall experience. So I would consider that. There is a little bit of, and I realize you're working with assets that you could find, and the assets are fine. There's a little bit of a tone clash, I feel, in terms of the danger and threat to the forest. And yes, it looks very bright and shiny. And the end there, it seems like more of like a moral ambiguous thing at the end when the druid sort of reflects upon what it's done, but it's still very bright. And that's just a matter of like, yeah, what can we do? What type of stories can we tell with the assets that we have? Or we're going to tell the story that we wanted anyway, and we can imagine assets being changed.
Yeah.
And I think it's just interesting. But reviewing it as it is right now, there is like a bit of a clash in sort of tone and style there that that needs to be addressed at some point.
Yeah, you're right. That's exactly what happened. There's going to be a dead forest here. Oh, well, we don't have any dead forest textures. We cut some trees down.
So like, do you tell the story of a dead the dead forest, or do you tell a different story?
Yeah, we did it backwards.
And that's an interesting. That's just something to consider.
Sure.
Going forward. But I applaud you for taking on this genre. This is not an easy one, and for 4 weeks, it's heartening to see you managed to put together a coherent experience despite the immense scope of this project, and I applaud you for that.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to start in a different direction to complement what Dennis is saying. So while super interesting, I would like to give you the feedback to avoid talking about your workflow, performance, or sort of bad learnings in the beginning of the presentation. I think you should, if you want to talk about it at the end of the presentation. That's because you have, in the beginning of the presentation, you have my attention, and I'm really excited to hear about the game. And then I get focusing on different subjects, and I start thinking about something else. While I think it's personally super interesting to hear about performance, I would think many people who watch pitches aren't. So instead, in the beginning, you could frame it as like, well, this is going to be one of the smoothest and most responsive second-to-second experience you've ever played, because you really care about that stuff, and summarize it into that, and then you can talk about like behind-the-scenes stuff later on. And as you kind of brought to attention, for a successful developer, there isn't such a thing as picking and choosing between fun tasks and boring tasks. Like, they're all work, and we have to have the attitude of embracing that. Okay. Then about the game, as you have learned, marketplace assets are often unoptimized, and blueprint scripts of marketplace assets are often not shippable or even usable in a real project. And that's because those who build for marketplace, they want to get something out really quickly and sell it and get money, and they aren't going to take in feedback that is not working for your game. So try to avoid using blueprint market scripting as much as possible, and be aware that the assets will be very unoptimized. Like, a map with this amount of assets should never cause any performance issues. What I really liked was this idea. I thought your pillars were excellent. I think, focusing on the animal abilities as your USP, you could probably have spent more time to visually make them delightful and stimulating. The bird coming into attack, for example, things like that, that's really visible. And a lot of you laughed when you turned into a tree. So like, as with these things that are unexpected, that really puts your game in people's memories. I was also confused on the tone, and I think Dennis made a good point that it's either the assets that need to change or it's the way the story is going that needs to change. And so, yeah, I'd like to just offer that when we put a mechanic in the game, like killing is one of the most satisfying mechanics that there is in games. Punishing the player for doing those mechanics will cause distress. And that distress could be good. Like you could make an arty game that's like telling how bad killing is and like punishing us psychologically for doing it. That could be a really good experience. Bad good. But if you don't want to make like a full socially comment on killing, then I would consider making the killing about knocking out or capturing or other way present what you're doing to these folks. It's up to you. Yeah, and then lastly, the pillar narrative. As you may have experienced, and you probably have experienced this from playing games too, narrative is one of the hardest things to build in a game. And it's because a lot of us, even if we do like narrative games, we will skip it if we don't feel immediately immersed or satisfied by the narrative, how the story is told. So when you do take on a genre with narrative, make sure that you put as much delight as possible in the narrative experience, since anything else will, even if the player care about narrative normally, they will not care. And the caring is key for your pillar to make sense. So yeah, try to put more emphasis on like it getting told. And I think that it was really well told in the cutscenes, and where it was lacking was in the dialogue part. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yeah, so I was just going to echo a couple of things that Fia said there. That from the presentation side of things, what you've got to remember is that you're going into your presentation with full knowledge of what you've already done in your project, and you've got all the context for everything. For people that haven't seen it, there's no context for the things that you're talking about and stuff. So saying up front, oh, we wanted to focus on optimization or whatever, we want to make sure that this is working well, and then later on, after showing the game, after we've got context of the game, being like, we managed to do this by, as you can see in the game, we've got bait-like map stuff, we wanted to do that because that was part of one of our things. So I think you can, if you want to talk about technical things, make sure that they're callbacks after you've presented the game, so that the people that are seeing the presentation have the context for why those are important. Another thing, it actually turned out all right in your in this scenario, but be really, really careful with early optimization. Early optimization can cause massive problems if it's done too early, and you'll get later on and just be like, oh, we can't do any of this now because we need to rewrite all of this. So like I say, here it actually turned out all right, and it seems like you made a pretty well educated decision to do it. But yeah, just in general, be careful with that. As for the game, it looks really nice. It plays nice, like Dennis was saying. Like, this is a very, very difficult kind of game to get right, and in 4 weeks, it's a really impressive demo that you got here. I think you've got a lot of features going on. I think you might have been a bit better off focusing on the player feedback from some of those features. You've got the you've got the different animal abilities, and there's one of them is like an aggressive one. One of them is a non-aggressive action. There's no kind of, from just looking at this, I don't feel like I'm getting the feedback on what actions I'm doing are aggressive, what actions I'm doing are non-aggressive. And so that kind of player feedback from what's going on is missing, which makes both actions seem the same. If you want to kind of really focus on that being two different styles of play that you've got, maybe having that actual like feedback on the player maybe slightly different. I know you've got like the red and the yellow, but maybe even just coloring the words differently on the side, or separating them into two categories. So you've got like, these are my aggressive actions, these are my non-aggressive actions, so I know up front what I'm doing, what it's going to do, rather than doing the action and being like, oh, actually that's not what I was expecting. Yeah, aside from that, I think what you've got is very good. The other thing that is kind of related to the player feedback side of things is, I know you're focusing on a narrative experience, and you want to focus on the narrative side of things, and like Fia was saying, you got to grab people with that narrative. One thing that you've got to be very, very careful of, especially with tutorialization in narrative, is don't try to like, hiding tutorialization in longer forms of narrative can be a problem, because if you do have players that are like, oh, I just want to get to playing the game, they're going to click through things and then they might have missed that entirely. But for people that are narrative focused, they'll be reading it and it can be quite jarring to suddenly see, oh, press this button or press this button in there. So you kind of don't actually serve either audience there. So you arguably be better off. I mean, a rule of thumb that I've generally followed in the past is that if you're doing tutorialization through text boxes and stuff, is to keep one line per lesson that you want to teach the player, because then you haven't got this like multiple lines of text. It means when you see multiple lines of text, you know this is narrative, and if you just see short, snappy text, like, oh, this is information, I need to pay attention to it. But yeah, aside from kind of the presentation and the kind of player representation of your actions and stuff, I think what's here is really good. There's a ton going on here, as I'm sure you're aware of, but I think sort of on the surface it doesn't look like maybe there's as much going on as there is, but like with all of the different like AI and stuff that's obviously going on in the background, and the healing of the trees, I think the idea is super solid. It's just the USP of that kind of defending the forest aggressively or passively, with a few tweaks on how you present those actions to the players, I think it could really pull it up to, you know, really focusing on having that two sort of types of gameplay. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Fantastic feedback.
Right, so thank you guys very much, team number 4, for this Druid game. What was the name of the game again? What? Just Druid. Just Druid, okay. Druid, the game. So with that being said, we're with a few minutes over time, but that's fine. That's always the case. We'll be breaking for lunch now, and we will resume things in here with team number 3 at 1 o'clock sharp. If you're looking for the restaurant, it's just outside of these doors, the flight of stairs up. Take a left and go straight along that corridor to the left until you get to the restaurant. Thank you guys very much, and we'll see you at 1.